We are live, and we're going to go ahead and test this. I don't know if we're going to do this every Thursday or not. We'll see how it works. We'll see where it goes. And I'm also working on a couple of different ways to kind of trigger the learning effect, which might be, hey, let's start with wiping the slate clean. And I guess you have to be watching this in order to see the wipe the slate clean. But anytime that you see something on the whiteboard, typically it is new. It's because I either had a conversation with someone or was working through something with someone. And the cool thing about whiteboards is you can use them to record information. You can use them to build together. And if you build the wrong thing or record the wrong information, you can always go back and erase it. So let's have a little bit of fun today. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. A lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. That's an Archimedes quote. And one of the challenges we run into as leaders, whether you're a new leader or a long-standing leader, is you feel like you have to be Superman or Supergirl or Superwoman or super whatever. You feel like you've got to be super. You've got to be somebody completely different than yourself. And I'm going to challenge you and say you don't. Leadership starts with self. That is a mindset, it's an attitude, it's a belief. Leadership starts with self, and you don't need to be a superhero in order to be an amazing leader. Now, once you build skills, though, as an amazing leader, excuse the notes, once you build skills as an amazing leader, then you can use tools like the lever to create leverage. The challenge is knowing where do you need to place the tools? Where's that fulcrum? Do you have a place to place the tools? How do you do this in the context of time and space and people? So we're going to go to the whiteboard a couple of different times today in the context of this. I've got a couple of different markers. When it comes to tools, tools can be used to create leverage. However, you need to apply those tools in the right place at the right time in the right context in order to create that leverage. When you do that, you can absolutely move the world, you can move organizations, you can move people, and you can do what my definition of leadership is. You can move forward, whether moving forward in the context of self as an individual, moving forward in the context of your family, the people who are close to you or important to you, or your business, how you make money. And it doesn't matter how you make money. You could do that inside an organization. You could do that on your own. You can run your own practice. There's a number of different ways to do it, but that's the work. So how do you lead in the context of work, family, community, people important to you, and self? Well, let's talk about a couple of different things. And actually, I think before I get into it, given that this is a live podcast, I should provide a little bit of context. If you have not been watching the videos on LinkedIn, take a look at those. Built up the series over the course of this week around the idea of the beginning with the end in mind from a leadership perspective, which is leaders who think critically and think creatively. The reason we want to do both is on the creative side, we can innovate, we can create, we can build new things. On the critical side, we can make effective decisions, we can solve problems, we can work through specific challenges, make decisions, and keep moving forward. So critical thinking and creative thinking. Working backwards, there were a couple of skills. Let's go through those 5 skills. The 5 skills were problem solving, decision making, achieving results, goal setting and execution, design for success, and communication. And in order to build those skills, we want to start with a mindset of continuous learning, strong belief in self, a belief that leadership starts with self. And from a mindset perspective, we talked about, this was yesterday, awareness. What do we know? What are we doing? How self-aware are we? What's our level of self-awareness? Self-confidence. Do we trust the ability to do the work that we know needs to happen? Do we trust our capabilities? What's our level of self-awareness, self-confidence, and the final one was self-worth. How much value do we put behind our capabilities? Again, you can go through and look at the leadership wheel. We'll break all of that stuff down. There's a couple of different ways to visualize it. This is going to be both. Well, it's a podcast, so it's going to be audio and video. So here's one audio. How about the click of that whiteboard marker? I want to share a couple of tools. And one of the tools that we can use to create leverage to help improve decision-making is a 2x2. And most of you know this 2x2 in the context of the Eisenhower matrix, which Covey reintroduced to us. And every once in a while I screw this thing up. And whether it's a lack of focus or a lack of attention to detail, I don't know what it is, but ultimately the tool itself will function the same, even if you make a mistake in how it works. Let's talk about importance. So is it important? Yes or no? So important, yes or no? So let's go no and yes. So this is our scale of importance. And then the next thing we want to do is know urgency. And I already made the mistake. Okay, now we want to know urgency. Is it not urgent or is it urgent? If it's urgent and important, falls into this category, both urgent and important. And Eisenhower would say, if you have things that fall into that category, the decision that you make quickly is that you go and you do it. You do it. Urgent and important. If, on the other side, it is important but not urgent, you make a decision. Do you hold off? If it is not urgent and it's not important, you eliminate it. And if it is not important but also urgent, you end up delegating it. Okay. So that's how Eisenhower used that matrix to make decisions around time management. I'm going to show you a different way that I like to use a 2x2. And here's a specific one that I've created around energy and impact. Again, cool thing about using a whiteboard, we get to build this thing together. Heck, let's erase the whole thing. So on one axis, what I want to know is energy. Energy is very important to me. I do not want to do things that suck the life out of me. So let's do negative energy, suck the life out of me. Positive energy builds me up. So that's energy. Okay. If I make a decision primarily based on does it build me up, I could just keep doing a lot of things, but not necessarily make the impact I want. So the next axis I want to know is impact. Low impact, high impact. I want to do things that build me up, give me energy, and have a high impact. Impact, I think of that in the context of change. Think about it on a football field. You make an impact with somebody, you change their direction, you change their momentum, you change the way that they're going. So let's look at doing work that is both high energy and high impact. So this is my ideal state. This is where I want to spend the majority of my time. And over time, over my career, what I've worked to do is continue to eliminate the things that are both low impact and high impact that suck the life out of me. Now, how do I eliminate things that are high impact that suck the life out of me? What I do is I find partners who happen to get energy out of some of those things. There are some people, as crazy as it sounds, there are some people who love to live in spreadsheets. There are some people who love to organize things. There are some people who love to spend endless hours in meeting. I am not one of those people. I can do a lot of really cool things with spreadsheets and data and move some data around, but it's not what builds me up. It's not what fires me up. So if I can find a partner who gets a lot of energy out of things like that, then we can work together and deliver high value to organizations that we work with, companies that we work with. We can, the way that I like to describe it is avoid the chasm of death, not get ourselves into a situation where if we were to plot this, so call this high impact, high energy, call this high impact, call this low impact, high energy. What we want to do is avoid this area down here, which is the low energy side of the wave. And if we find people who can do those things, then this can create an instance where now we can really work together and create kind of a super team. If you remember, like Wonder Twins activate to form of whatever, this is where you find your Wonder Twin and create some of that stuff. So look for people who get energy out of some of the things that suck the life out of you, especially the high impact ones, and then figure out a way to partner with them. My point, a 2x2 like this can be used to create leverage and build strength like Superman when it comes to decision making. So what we do is we look at our challenge, we look at the decision that we have to make through 2 dimensions. And by looking at it through 2 dimensions, we reduce risk and improve our effectiveness, specifically when it comes to decision making. And that is a great way to create leverage. So that's a decision making one. I have not been paying attention to the chat. So we'll take a look at that and see if there's any chat that's on here. Okay, again, we're live on LinkedIn. We're live on YouTube. We're doing that both through the Catalyst channels. This will be cross posted or reposted on the Find My Catalyst podcast, where ideally you can find your catalyst on the Find My Catalyst podcast. All right, let's take a look at another tool. So we talked about decision making. There's one tool that we can use for decision making. What about communication? How do we improve at communication? How do we build the strength of being a better communicator? Well, there's a couple of tools that we can use when it comes to communication. We can use our eyes, right? I can observe what's happening from a nonverbal perspective in any environment that I'm in if I take the time to watch. I can listen. I can hear the words that are coming back, the questions that are coming back, the sighs, the whatever they are, if I take the time to listen. 2 eyes, 2 ears, of 1 mouth. Another way that I can communicate is by speaking information. I can use nonverbal communication skills to pick up energy by changing the field that I'm working in, leveraging some of the space that I've got in my operating environment with the camera. You can see some of the shadows that are there. And I want to thank Murph for recommending a light below me that I do not have turned on to help cut down some of those shadows. So Murph, thank you for that. And Rachel, thanks for making that introduction. Let's get back into this tool. So the next tool that I want to talk about is a call plan. It's an effective communication tool. This originates from back in the day when it was and I'm leading revenue teams, where we talk about how do we go in and get ourselves prepared to have an effective meeting and get closer to creating the conversion that we're looking for in that meeting. And the conversion can either be converting to a yes or converting to a no. So we want to convert. We want change from current state to either a desired state or a future state. So let's create conversions with a call plan or improve communication with a call plan. And if you ever go into a meeting without a call plan, you are wasting not only your time, but you're wasting your customer's time, and you're wasting the person on the other end. And customers can be internal customers or external customers. So let's work through this tool. First thing I want to know is who is it that I'm going to be communicating with? Now, this could be in a physical environment. It could be in a digital environment. It can be in a written environment. It could be an audio environment. Who are the people that I'm communicating with? People who listen to the podcast. These are the folks that I'm communicating with. You want to find your catalyst, that nudge to start doing the things you were meant to do. And I attempt to bring on experts who have practical experience that can help share what's worked for them to help potentially create that nudge, that catalyst. So who are the people that are going to be in the room, are going to be receiving the message, are going to be listening to the podcast? Who? We want to know who the people are. This can be one person. This can be many people. As you increase the number of people, the complexity starts to change. Their needs start to change. So who's going to be in the room? Next thing I want to understand are what are their objectives. What do they actually want to accomplish? What are they trying to get out of the discussion, the meeting, the thing, the reading, whatever it is? What are their objectives? I've been a part of those meetings where my objective is just to not fall asleep during the meeting. What are the objectives of the people that are in that environment with you? So their objectives, we're anticipating this. We're thinking about them. On our side, we want to know, what are our objectives? What are our objectives? What do we want to learn? What do we want to share? How do we want people thinking? What do we want people doing? What do we want to learn? What do we want to share? How do we want people thinking? What do we want people doing? What are our objectives? Do we want to learn information? Do we want to convey information? Do we want to validate an understanding? What is our objective? Be careful. Don't try to do too much in this environment. I like to limit things to 3. So if I know what the 3 objectives are on the other person's side, I know what the 3 objectives are on my side, then I can move into this next area, which is desired next steps. What are our desired next steps? So from a conversion standpoint, if the desired next step is that the person on the other end introduces you to somebody else inside their organization, that is a next step that you can list out before you go into the meeting. If the desired next step is that people do more of the work that you're looking for them to do inside the CRM, fill out fields, understand, do the work that you expect, then that can be one of your next steps. But what are our 3, and I like to use 3 desired next steps. Now, the other thing I like to do from an accountability standpoint is I like to own 2 of those 3 and have the person who's participating own 1 of those. Because I can use the desired next steps to help with some kind of accountability on that side and kind of move things along. So I'm not checking in or following up on certain things. I'm sharing information, reminding them about it. If I go into a meeting, I go into a call, I go to an event, I send an email, I should know who it's going to. I should anticipate what their objectives are as the recipient, know what my objectives are, and I need to know what my desired next steps are. And if I know those 4 things, I can design for success. So a tool like this can help you improve at communication, both in the home, in the workplace, and even inside your head. Now, the interesting part about their objectives versus our objectives, you might be playing with a little bit of schizophrenia on both sides of yourself. But anyhow, we all have those internal voices that we kind of work through. What is the internal voice that's getting in the way of you hitting your desired next step for the internal communication? And that is a much deeper conversation than what we can get into on a Thursday morning live podcast. I am not seeing much in the chat. We'll see if we can do this thing I'm going to shoot for 9:15 Eastern every week. 7:15 my time, 6:15 for those of you who are on the West Coast, and do a recorded session like this. I'd love to get some questions from you, things you'd like to hear me address. Again, leadership starts with self. If you're looking for leadership, start with a mirror. If you're looking for leadership, start with a mirror. Stop wasting your time looking for other people to lead you well, either inside your organization, inside your family. Stop wasting time looking for some magic thing that's out there. Take ownership of yourself. Take control of the situation. Build up your own personal leadership capabilities, and you will be surprised by the leaders that will congregate around you. Leadership starts with self. If you're looking for leadership, start with a mirror. The leadership starts with self thing is not new. There are a lot of people talking about it. It's a Stoic philosophy. You get into the controllables, right? Leadership starts with self. Let's focus on the self. Then we've earned the right to work with another person. We demonstrate that well, we earn the right to work with teams. We demonstrate that well, we earn the right to work with teams of teams, and we're leading organizations. Leadership is an act of service. Leadership starts with self. Leadership is an act of service. The mindset or attitude belief around leadership starting with self is really important because that will put you in a position where you feel comfortable taking on new skills, learning new skills. My recommendation on those 5 skills, remember we talked about it, it's problem solving, decision making, goal setting and execution, decision making, the 2x2. You know what? I'm going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to roll out one more tool, share one more tool. This is probably going to be a little bit too much, but I've got a little extra time this morning. Let's talk about how we achieve results. How do we achieve results? So let's figure out first, number one, it'd be really, really hard for you to build out strategy and tactics to help achieve the goal. So the first thing I want to understand is, I would recommend that you make it small. Do I know the goal? Let's start first with we can actually figure out how do we apply the tool into larger context. So what is number 2? This gets into strategy. Need to be true to achieve that objective. We have a goal. We want to go get eggs at the grocery store. It's a very small goal. Heck, we want to get a glass of water from the kitchen. Our goal is to get eggs. Let's just work with the egg goal. So if our goal is to go get eggs, again, super, super simple goal, something that we can execute on, and probably not one where you have to build out strategy and tactics, but let me use this to make the point. In order to get eggs, one thing we have to do is know where. Like, where are we going to get them? Okay. The next thing we're going to need to know is how. How are we going to get there? And then the third thing we need to know is when. What's the timing? Okay. If I know where the eggs are, how we're going to get there, when, then I can increase the likelihood of success when it comes to achieving my egg goal. Well, behind this, then we need to go ahead and lay out our tactics. Now, I like to use, again, rule of three kind of thing. And I like to use 3 specific tactics that I can do either on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, an annual basis in order to achieve this result. This is where those checklists come in. If you like checklists come in these tactics where, I could list out Fry's, I could list out Costco, and I could list out the local dairy. Okay. Got a couple of different options. How? I'm going to drive a vehicle, or I could ride a bike. When do I need them by? Okay, here's why when is going to be important. If I need them in the next 20 minutes, the only way that I'm going to get them in 20 minutes is if I go to Fry's, because Fry's is just around the corner and I've got to get in the Jeep and I got to drive over there. And in order to do that, from a execution perspective, I've got to go out, turn the Jeep on, back out of the driveway, drive down the street, go to Fry's, pick up the eggs, pay for the eggs, and bring them home. If I need to get them in 20 days, now I have a little bit more flexibility. I might be able to identify a dairy because that's the place that I want to go. Ultimately, what I'm looking at here are goals, actions, strategy, metrics, work that I can hold myself accountable to, and then ultimately the work accountable to working. And this is your game plan. So anytime that you hear me talk about game plan, goal setting and execution through clarity and focus, this is the game plan tool. This is a bit more complex than a 2x2. It is a bit more complex than the communication tool. This is the tool that we can use if inside your organization, let's just say inside your company, you're struggling with this. Number one, I would figure out, does everybody understand the goal? Like, can they all say it out loud? Does everybody understand the goal? If they don't understand the goal, start there. Once you get to the point where everybody's aligned on the goal, then work through, hey, how might we achieve the goal? What are some of the strategies that we can put in place? And then start to build out your tactics that align with each of those strategies. Too often, what people do is they start with the goal, and then they're like, well, you got to go and start doing the work. They go right from work into the goal, and they end up doing a bunch of little things, but not making the kind of progress that they really intended to make when it comes to this kind of stuff. The story to kind of think about in this context is, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. Never eaten an elephant, but you know that that's a story that's out there, right? So how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you climb up a hill? The journey of 10,000 steps starts with one. We do these things at one bite at a time. If you get yourself into a situation where you're taking one step in this direction and one step in another direction and one step in another direction, you find yourself moving around in circles. If you take a bite out of multiple elephants, you just get a lot of irritated elephants. One bite at a time. Let's make sure our work aligns directly with our strategy, that aligns directly with our goal. Just about 25 minutes as a live version of the podcast. Those tools will help you create leverage. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum for which to place it, and I can move the world. An Archimedes quote. Use these tools as your lever. Know where to place it based on your skills and your understanding, your self-awareness, your self-confidence, your self-worth, and you will start moving the world and be the leader that you can be. If you are looking for leadership, start with a mirror. If you are looking for help on this stuff in your organization, give me a call. I've got 2 different ways that you can work with me on this and work with us, as Jen has gotten more involved in the business. Number 1, for individuals, check out the Leader Lab. We're building a community of leaders who know that leadership starts with self and that we build leadership capabilities by helping build other leaders. So it starts with self, we build other leaders, and inside the laboratory environment, we get a chance to test, iterate, figure out what works for us, because the thing that works for me may not necessarily work for you, and the thing that works for somebody else may not necessarily work for me. So we test in that environment, in an environment where we can communicate directly with each other. And that is the intention behind the Leader Lab. Build a community of the next generation of leaders, both people who have a significant amount of experience and those who maybe have a little bit less experience. But we're going to build leadership capability inside the Leader Lab by testing and iterating. The second place that you can work with me is guided whiteboard discussion. So if you miss the days where you were able to pop open a whiteboard marker, get up there and start drawing out some things, work as a team, I've created an environment where I can do this with you and your team, a team of up to 10 people for up to 90 minutes to either solve a problem, align on strategy and tactics, or design for problem solving and execution. Those are the three challenges that I can help you solve for in a collaborative meeting environment, leveraging the whiteboard, this camera, the audio, and some markers, and ultimately the business acumen that I've gained over time working across a number of organizations. I don't know the information that's in your head. I do know the questions to get it out of your head and up on the board. And when we get it up out on the board, when we find out that the team is aligned. So 2 ways to work with me. Number 1, guided whiteboard sessions. Number 2, the Leader Lab for individuals, and the guided whiteboard sessions for teams. If you know somebody who would benefit from this podcast, get something out of the tools that were discussed. The perspective around leadership starts with self, the building both the mindset and the skill set, and then leveraging tool set to think different so that you can do different. Please share this episode with them. The shares help. The comments help. Sales is a thinking process. Business is a thinking process. Life is a thinking process. How are you thinking different about your process?